Hello and welcome to another video at Water Closet Aquarium Gallery. Today we're down here in the basement. It's a breeder video, but it's not in the breeder lab. This is actually the plant propagation area, and today we're talking about guppy colonies and endlers. We've got two different types of endlers, and then we've got, and I didn't count before filming, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of guppies. And each of these is 20 long, they're heavily planted, and that seems to be enough for the fry to not get all eaten. And you know, the nice thing is that our plant propagationist, she's doing her weekly water changes, so I don't have to do that. All I have to do is feed them and work on maintaining the colonies. So the bulk of their nutrition comes from Ocean Nutrition Community Flakes. No need to get too fancy with guppies. If there's a lot of really young fish, I like to use coral food. This is Coral Frenzy. I have a slight preference for reef roids. It's just because I'm a little bit more familiar with it. But I steal whatever Allie has open over in the coral fragging area, so this is what she has open right now.
Are there any foods that are good for bringing out certain colors in fish?
Yes, actually. A lot of what's good for bringing out colors in fish is very dependent on what colors you're trying to bring out. So colors like greens and blues, for example, foods with a lot of algae like spirulina or chlorella are really good for that. If you're looking to bring out something like reds or oranges, krill's much better choice for that, those specific types of carotenoids. These different pigments come from different pigments, so feeding them those specific pigments helps.
So what kind of colors are you going for in these colonies? Are you still adjusting them?
It's an ever-going process. Some of these, like the Moscows and the snakeskins, I'm just trying to propagate them at this point. They're a little bit more on the back burner, because we started off with fewer of them, and they were later colonies. So they're just in the phase of just trying to get more individuals at this point. The two colonies that I'm working the most on are the Japan blue lyre-tails behind me here, and the lime green endlers are my main focus, just because, so I have a very specific image in my head, and I also think that for a lot of livebearer breeders, I think it's fun to have kind of like a goal of where you're going. And this is the part where I have to admit I was wrong. In a podcast several months ago, I said I wasn't really into livebearer breeding, and then I got peer pressured into running the livebearer breeding here, and I kind of got into it. I got a little invested. So, you know, I'm okay to be wrong in this case, because it's more fun that way. But the lime green endlers are finally at the color green I want them to be. But what I'm working on now is, if you look at some of the males, there's an orange line on the bottom of the caudal fin, and I've got that basically to the end of the tail. And then now I'm working on getting the orange at the top of the caudal fin to be all the way to the base, to the end of the tail, because I'm trying to simulate like a pseudo lyre tail look without, you know, committing to breeding a lyre tail. It's just, I don't know. And it was a little bit of happenstance just because I was just working on the orange on the bottom of the tail, and then a few males popped up randomly with orange on the top, so then I thought, hey, maybe I can get that to do that too. So we'll see. But these are definitely examples of attempts to constantly improve the line or make them look a little bit more unique to us.
So what's the process for teasing out a particular trait in a colony of livebearers?
There's a couple different methods you could do with that. One of the more common ways is to separate some desirable males and put some virgin females in there, and that can like expedite the process. I'm not particularly fond of it, partially because I'm really big in genetic diversity in colonies, and doing that is a great way to suddenly bottleneck your genetics in your colony. And I feel like net, if you want to, you know, maintain genetic diversity, you're going to have to influx new genes, and then you're basically diluting what you just did. So I just rather do the long haul of every few generations. I shouldn't say every few generations. About once a month, I go through and I figure out how many males and females are in there, and then I try to keep the best, like 40–50%, depending on how many are in there. And I keep those, and then the rest of them get brought up for sale upstairs. So every once in a while, if you come upstairs and you're like, wow, what's up with these random endlers or something? It's just because I'm clearing out. And the goal is, like, I had a guy come in and he bought some like 4 months ago, and he came back in a couple weeks ago, and he said, wow, these look different. And I'm like, I would hope so.
That's called progress.
Yes. So.
What else do we have to cover?
I don't know.
Do you want to talk about calling?
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm merciless. And that's a reality that I think all breeders should be. For me, I consider it a responsibility and part of breeding. It's not typically something I enjoy. Here we have the benefit of, we have some predatory fish like the peppermint pikeheads or the dwarf pike cichlids. Circle of life. But for those that, like at home, I don't have that benefit, so you have to actually euthanize them. And that's not really a topic I want to get into how to do that. This is the fun part of breeding, but I do think that's a reality of, like, deformed spines, stuff like that. That is not something I'm going to sell to someone, because that's a fish that would have gotten picked off in the wild. These ones are pretty cool. They came in really, really good, but at this point, it's mostly just improving the color and getting the lyra tail a little bit longer. So most of these colonies were started off with 3 to 6 pairs, and then every few months our goal is to get new genetic stock in, just to keep them diverse. Every time you do put in some new genetic stock, you do, kind of take it a little bit step back, but I think the benefits of the genetic diversity in the colony overall far outweigh that. A great example where this happens a lot, where I cannot tell you how many times people have come in and they're like, so I got into shrimp breeding and I was doing great for about somewhere between 3-6 months, and then suddenly the entire colony crashed. I don't know what you did wrong. And my first question is always, how many did you start off with? And the number is usually 6 to 8. And then my next question is, did you ever get any other shrimp? And they say, no. What happened was your colony got too inbred, and inbreeding depression kicked in really hard and just wiped out your colony.
So at what point would you recommend introducing some new genetic diversity into your colony?
I think it's a little dependent on how you maintain your colony, and B, how much you started off with. So if you're starting off with fewer guppies, let's say you start off with 2 pairs, you'll probably want to influx genetic diversity sooner rather than later, maybe a generation or 2 in. And then, but if you're the type of person that's only keeping the best 10%, maybe you need to influx more than someone who's only keeping the best 40%, because you are bottlenecking your genetic diversity every time you do that. Bigger is always better. It means that you can have more. If you have, I don't know, a 65, you can have a couple 100 guppies in there. But I know a lot of people do them in 10s. I think that's a little too small. But I think these 20 longs are a really good butter zone for us here and for a lot of people at home. It allows us to have, you can see we generally have somewhere around 50, 60 guppies in each tank. And that seems to be pretty good density. I would be a little cautious trying to keep more in a tank that size, but it seems to work. Nitrates are a growth inhibitor in fish, so the more you have of them, the slower your fish are going to grow, or in the case of guppy colony, they'll probably get high enough that it'll reduce the survival of your colony. So.
What are some good plants to put in your tank to help encourage fry to survive?
Anything thick and bushy. Ambulia, which is what's over here with the koi tuxedos, rotala, guppy grass, of course, nias grass, the black bar endlers at the end there, that is dwarf baby tears, and yes, that is dwarf baby tears. That's what it looks like when you don't trim it up. gets nice and thick and tall. I would like to see, you know, photos of your colonies at home, what kind of guppies you're working with. Feel free to, you know, send us an email, check out our podcast, and, you know, all of that good stuff. We have a TikTok these days, and that's, we are working on some educational content for it, but it is also a dumping ground for a lot of our stupid jokes that we like to have here. So, you know, fun fact. And then, you know, like, subscribe, let us know what kind of projects you want to know we're working on. Like, there's some actual stuff in the breeder lab. What kind of stuff would you like us to work on in there? Or do you have questions like that? And I hope you had lots of fun with this video, and hopefully it encourages everyone to keep their hands wet.
I'm gonna give you shots of this. It looks really good. Good job. Thanks. That's good B-roll.